Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Aster-yee-ah. This episode will be the redevelopment of the fusion power plant created in episode 2. You may be wondering, why did I want to go back and redevelop this? Well, firstly, episode 2 is actually the least watched episode of the Aster-yee-ah series. To regain interest, I decided to remake the power plant to more accurately resemble a fusion power plant. Lastly, the power plant was made in 2015, so the tools for City Skylines were pretty primitive in what you can do. With mods like Move It, I think making a fusion power plant that would be more realistic would be doable. Now I want to talk about something concerning fusion power. Sometimes fusion power is called nuclear fusion, which is technically right because it is a process of nuclear forces, but in terms of marketing and media, nuclear fusion is typically lumped into its present-day sibling, nuclear fission. What I mean by present-day sibling is that nuclear fission is the process that our modern-day nuclear power plants use. And recently, as you may know, nuclear power has gotten a bad reputation due to disasters like Fukushima, Chernobyl, and 3 Mile Island. Nuclear fission is the process of using the decay of heavy radioactive elements to generate heat, which generates steam and turns a turbine to make electricity. The word fission means the division of something, to separate, like the term fissure, an opening or dividing of the ground from an earthquake. Its counterpart, fusion, is similar sounding, but meaning the process of combining two or more things, like Asian fusion food of combining several different Asian tastes into one dish or setting. Just wanted to clear that up because they do sound similar, especially when preceded by the term nuclear, which people are often triggered by since we literally went through half a century and even now of competing superpowers with nuclear weapons. Originally, nuclear fission power was described as the power of the future with clean energy, but this doesn't take into account of radioactive waste. Sure, nuclear fission is clean if you don't count the waste. It's just generating steam from its cooling towers, and safe if you have it well maintained. But with humanity's situation and history, safety concerns or high standards are normally preceded by environmental disaster. Nuclear fission depends on heavy, unstable elements that generate a lot of energy through their process of decay. Such elements like uranium or plutonium are huge and heavy atoms that try to downsize themselves by emitting particles out, and that makes them deadly in terms of ionizing radiation. Regular radiation literally just means lights. A flashlight is emitting radiation because it is radiating photons, or the headlights of your car are emitting radiation because they are emitting photons to light your path at night. But ionizing radiation from radioactive materials is the emission of high-energy particles like alpha and beta particles, neutrons, protons, and electrons. With nuclear fusion, however, it is the process of combining atoms to generate power, and this process is commonly seen in stars like our sun. The sun is basically one giant nuclear fusion reactor of combining basic elements that are not heavy or unstable like hydrogen into helium. The elements typically used in our modern-day fusion reactors, which are used for testing and experimental purposes, are the elements deuterium and tritium. Deuterium is colloquially known as heavy hydrogen, as it contains one neutron. A regular hydrogen atom only contains a proton in its nucleus. Tritium is another hydrogen isotope, but contains 2 neutrons instead of 1, and it is slightly radioactive with a half-life of just 12 years compared to uranium's half-life of 4.5 billion years or plutonium's 24,000 years. Today, there is ongoing research with nuclear fusion. We have reactors all over the world, but the main problem for an economic and commercial use is how can we put energy into it and get twice as much energy out. So far, we put a lot of energy into starting a reaction, but they only last for a few seconds, which is not enough to power a city, obviously. We have several different methods of creating a fusion reaction, and the most popular design is the tokamak design, which is essentially a chamber shaped like a donut where plasma is sent spinning around this chamber in hopes that particles would smash and fuse into each other to generate energy. But the design that I will be using in this fusion power plant in Aster-yee-ah is a magnetic inertial confinement design where a pellet of deuterium and tritium is shot with a high-energy laser beam to initiate the reaction and then sustained by a powerful magnetic field to keep the reaction going. You may be asking, how safe is a fusion power plant? Compared to a nuclear fission plant, a fusion plant would be immensely safer because it doesn't have to worry about decaying materials causing a meltdown. In a traditional nuclear power plant, meltdowns are caused by the heavy elements decaying and not properly cooled. If humanity were to be gone today, Nuclear power plants would continue to run until the water keeping the material maintained evaporates, thus causing a meltdown. These materials will continue to decay for billions of years anyway. With fusion, there is no concern for decay because deuterium and tritium are such light elements. Tritium is indeed radioactive, but its half-life is significantly smaller, just 12 years compared to uranium and plutonium. Fusion is such a delicate process that the reaction can be stopped just by a slight temperature change and cause no harm if something were to happen. The magnets containing the reaction can stop the reaction, or if the magnets were to stop, the reaction would just stop and only damage the walls of the reactor. There is no concern with steam causing pressure buildup like that of Chernobyl that took off the roof of the plant because there won't be any direct cooling with the reaction. The future of fusion is bright as research continues. The elements used are vastly abundant, not much risk, and very little radioactivity and no waste. There is a scale that measures how advanced a civilization is by energy production, and that is called the Kardashev scale. A Type 1 civilization is maximizing energy of all planetary resources, such as wind, solar, geothermal, and etc. Type 2 is the maximization of energy of a star, such as encompassing a star to capture energy or replicating the process of nuclear fusion on a stellar level. Type 3 is harnessing the power of the entire galaxy. Type 4 is harnessing the power of massive galactic and stellar systems or objects of the universe like supermassive black holes. Type 5 is maximizing the entire universe or most of the universe and quite possibly other universes. Today we are currently Type 0, but we are inching closer to maximizing power production with the planet with renewable resources, and with fusion power we may inch closer to a Type 2 civilization. I would also like to go over that fusion is one of the central themes of Aster-yee-ah. As you may remember in episode 1 where I explained the logo in the beginning of the video, fusion is depicted as the revolving electron with the proton in the center, and also has a dual meaning of the moon revolving around the earth in the middle. Not only Aster-yee-ah has birthed viable fusion energy in its time, but fusion is a metaphor for humanity that when united together, we can achieve greater things. I want to end off by naming the fusion power plant after theoretical physicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking. He has passed away earlier this year in March, and Mr. Hawking has always been a large supporter of fusion power research, hoping that one day humanity can achieve it. He left us with this quote: "I would like nuclear fusion to become a practical power source. It would provide an inexhaustible supply of energy without pollution or global warming." Harnessing the power of fusion energy, we would finally be one among the stars. Since the dawn of time, the sun, a nuclear fusion engine, has been our mother and enveloping us with its warming rays of light. Amidst the coldness of the universe, darkness persists, as it is the absence of something. But the sun has always been there for us, filling the void with life. With this power, it may grant us new life and a brighter future.